Welcome back to this International Eco-efficiencies Forum, the transformation of the food and beverage sector. And welcome to the Agri-Industry panel. During this time, we discuss regarding the opportunities and challenges that the sector has. I am Ricardo Reyes, and today I will be moderating this space with a great guest. Because our guests are from different countries, this panel will be held in English, so don't forget to make sure if you wish to activate the translation. And now let me introduce our special guest. Please welcome Renato Asesor, Director of Operations of Camille Alimentos Brazil. Renato, welcome, and thank you to come to join with us.
Bom dia. Good morning, everybody.
Thank you. Jemina Antunes, Environmental Specialist for Bayer Company. Jemina, muchas gracias por estar aquí. Gracias.
Thank you for being here. Good afternoon to all. How are you? It's a pleasure being here.
And Jeron Costil. Jeron is the CEO of Mutatec. Jeron, welcome again, and thank you to join us.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everybody.
Thank you. Don't forget that on the right side of the screen, you can scan the QR code available for send your question and concerns. This will be resolved at the end of the question space. Without more to say, let's start. And thank you very much again, guys. Let me start with a question to establish the context of the topic. You will agree with me that the sector, agri-industrial sector, is in a position where it's necessary for agri-food production to be more sustainable and closer to the customers. And allow me to start with you, Jeron. How is this accomplished? Where should we start?
Well, thank you for the questions. As Mutatec, we are especially looking at one side of the question, which is as you know, there are all these agriculture production and food and beverage production generates a certain amount of waste, byproducts, or scrapped products, which means that some say that nearly 30% at least of the agriculture production never reaches the final consumer. So that's one of the things we as Mutatec try to address, and that is the recycling, or the give a value to this all this material that is generated through in the course of the whole chain, but doesn't get to the final consumer. So I would say the pre-consumer waste. That's a big challenge, and that's what we are addressing as Mutatec.
Thank you, Jeron. Jemina, ¿cómo planea Bayer sus negocios agrícolas?
How does Bayer plans to have its agricultural business to work in mitigation and improving climate change adaptation? Obviously, to be able to achieve sustainability and getting closer to customers. How will you achieve that, Ricardo? We know that nowadays we're 7 billion people, and for 2050 we estimate approximately 10 billion people. With that in mind, the challenge we have ahead is that to feed a greater number of people in the world with less amount of natural resources and use, fertile lands and so on. What do we do with this? We know that agriculture, fishing, livestock farming are part of global warming and climate change itself. All of our operations are part of greenhouse gases effects, but also agriculture is part of a victim of all this that we are suffering: floodings, droughts, less accessible lands. And nonetheless, it's demonstrated that agriculture has a great potentiality to be able to remove and solve this crisis that we are seeing today. Sustainable practices, agricultural practices that are sustainable, that not only reduce emissions, but also even can eliminate them and even sequestrate carbon for the land or soil, such as direct planting or rotation of crops, demonstrated that preserve nutrients of the soil. And from Bayer, we understand that the way of doing farming It's for the good agricultural practices and very sustainable perspective. This gives us the capacity, providing with two scopes that are very fundamental to guarantee first food, safe, efficient, and on the other side, fulfill and comply with environmental protection. Our vision in budget says everything, of course, health for everyone, food, hunger for no one. How do we achieve that objective? To 2030, Bayer has an objective, global objective that is neutral carbon. When we talk about, carbon footprint and neutral carbon, what do we mean? And what do we talking about? Someone like me that, we have a carbon footprint, a private company creates like to be carbon neutral is when the total amount of tons or kilo of emissions of CO2 are compensated to what you are able to change in the environment. This can be planting trees, reducing our greenhouse gases effects, or creating new ways of, we can sequestrate, trees can help and aid on the carbon dioxide and so on. These are our, lands that can solve for this. Bayer wants to be neutral carbon in 2030. That's a goal that we have 9 years in the making. It's a year's less that we have to achieve this, where we presented a lot of initiatives, not only to be carbon neutral, but to reduce our footprint in the baseline that is 2020. We need to reduce that, footprint in 30%, to reduce in 30% the impact that we're having with our apps. And on top of this, contributing with 100 million of our farmers or agricultures, peasants and countries in underdevelopment. Why? Because they can be part of this movement of sustainable agriculture. What do we achieve with this? We achieve the development, economical development, social development, and protection for the environment that is going to take us to the 3 pillars of a sustainable development. Completely connected with the, 3 SDGs, no poverty, no hunger, and fight against climate change. That's number 3. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great explanation regarding the initiatives of Bayer. And now, Renato, let's move to Camille. What initiatives is Camille following to mitigate and better adapt to climate change?
Bom ponto, né? Bom dia a todos novamente. Aqui na
Good
Camille,
morning to all. Right here in Camille is very important is to say that we are a company that works through the acquisition of raw materials directly from the producers. We don't plant, we don't execute the planting. We receive the grains or the crops, sugar. We receive also wheat from providers, suppliers, and we industrialized within our company in-house. And what we do to be able to contribute with climate change, the first things we do is that we work together through robust management, through indicators when we talk about through diminishing the things that affect the environment. The first thing that we need to do is to have more with less. So we have a continuous search, infinite search to reducing our costs. When we talk about this cost reduction, we talk about diminishing consumption of different areas and diminishing loss as well. To give me provide an example, when we talk about in our crops in rice, for instance, it's just a good example of circular economy, because rice, we process rice with kind of what covers the rice. We use it as a burn to create vapor and steam for electricity. We also use rice as well, the dust of rice. We use this dust to create oil-based, rice-based, that replaces vegetable oils. And also we have that dust to do food for, animal food. And from the grains that are broken on the process, we can have other type of rices, different kind of types of levels of quality on the product that allow us to put it into the market. So we are scoping in this, one of the great initiatives of the company this year, on top of the diminishing of losses and consumption, improving the production as well on the operations as well, improving volume production with less losses and less consumption, optimizing the supply chain when we want to diminish the emission of greenhouse gases or carbon. the best work, with our trucks, routes, transportation, and automation improve, so we can optimize all the delivery routes to use less trucks and have diminishing on and gases emissions. That's an important data that is worth mentioning. We have 20% of reduction in diesel consumption in our fleet in the past years on the reduction of routes and planning our trucks, our reverse engineering that we work as well to transform plastic, in our packaging, metals, in fission products. We have commitments to reprocess these products for recycling. Environmental education in our community is also a milestone. We have 15 plants in Brazil, 7 distribution centers. In those regions where we operate, we try to achieve a work together with the communities, hand in hand. And this once again creates renewable energies that we're going to talk a little bit in the next questions, but where we created a company, Camille, in renewable energies, where we recover all the use initiatives of energy matrix that it's even improved, even thermoelectric, to create vapor and steam. And there is studies of new photovoltaic sun energies, solar energies, to create new energies in our plants. So we have created a new company to create a new scope in this perspective. So I believe that these are the best initiatives that we are trying to accept and adapt, improving productivity, diminishing losses and consumptions, and increasing our energy matrix to have a more clean energy in our operations that we could contribute to the planet. Just to close and underscore, Camille, nowadays, 95% of the energy that we used, it comes from renewable sources. We are in the free market. We do, wind energy, and we are going to create and search 100% of internal generation, power, electricity generation, so we are sustainable over time. And to be able to achieve 100% using renewable energies, and this is what we're trying to work as of now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Renato, and thank you all of you guys. Now we have the vision of 3 different companies like Camille, Bayer, and Nutatec, and the action that they are doing in order to reduce and to attack the problem of the sustainability in this sector. Now let's move to the big challenge. It's estimated that the 2050 the food production will have to increase by 70% to feed an approximated population of more than 9 billion people. This increase in the demand for the food will have a negative effect of a consumption of resources for the food and beverage industry, mainly water, land, and energy. It's estimated that to satisfy the demand of the world population in 2050, water consumption will have to increase by 30%, while energy demand will have to increase by 45%. It's incredible. Jemina, now we start with you. ¿Cómo minimizar los impactos sobre el consumo?
How to minimize impacts on the consumption of resources and the supply chain? How we will do that? Okay, Bayer, as we said, we have this commitment, is to reduce in 2030. We're working with farmers and so on. When we talk about working for the farmers and with the farmers, we're talking about the sustainability change and on the life cycle of the product, where we're talking about, from crate to cradle, from ground to the moon. That's what we want now. Bayer has 2 programs that are highly important to be able to support our customers and our growers. One, it's CIRAM BPA norms and regulations, good 14130. This is a certification that provides transparency and our commitment that is sustainable. Not only has Bayer with their processes, but the ones we work with. This is what we certified, is what the applicability of phytosanitary controls, aerial and land, and the processes of planting and growing. Another program that we have for our customers, it is the program that we know as Procarbono. It started in the United States as a Procarbon, then went to Brazil, and since last year it came to Argentina. This program, what allow us to have is to select those customers that are completely committed with a sustainable agriculture, and we deliver like a solution packages that are sustainable, that we talk about, like direct planting, low impact fertilizers, rotation of plant or or plantations and so on, or crops, doing an initial monitoring with digital tools like Invit and so on. And through the years, start monitoring like health of the soil is improving, and that will be benchmarking models to follow. And tomorrow probably it could be and create, carbon bonds with us. The idea at the end is to be able to share within inside what we know in the agricultural processes that are sustainable, then going to our growers and customers. You said very good and very well that there's a great demand in consumption in water on top of what soil. Okay, Bayer, as per in his website and in its, facilities, we have objectives within our company. What are these objectives? To be able to have neutral carbon in 2030, we have to reduce our emissions in greenhouse gases by direct emissions with consumption directly on what's burned inside the plants. We need to be consumers of 100% renewable energies. That could be like, from bioenergies or buying or purchasing green energies. This is what help us to alleviate and help on the consumption of stopping fossil fuels, because we have in our matrix here in Argentina, what's fields, we also have, some guidelines for rivers through solar energy. So we need to work hand in hand on energy efficiency. In several of the plans, we're analyzing implementation ISO 50001 that talks about energy efficiency. And on top of this, see how could we be more productive with less resources, as Renato just mentioned. We need to develop as well a comprehensive waste management. There's another objective for buyers to be zero dumping, landfill, zero landfill. That means that none of our waste go to landfills or to dump sites. We need to do that. Each waste needs to have a current or a sustainable destination. Recyclable go to cooperatives to create new materials. On the fields, we're quite aligned with phytosanitary packaging to send it to new warehousing centers according to legislation here in Argentina. Everything that is special through a special treatment, whatever is organic, directly create composting. Everything that we are fruits, grass, mate, and so on. Each sector has like a composting unit and then bio, transformers. And what water consumption, what's on the field also, we have of greatest, footprint, hydro footprint. We don't have a great company. It's called Hydrobio. Through satellite imaging, we provide for, we are clean and efficient when irrigating soils to try to alleviate, elevated consumption. And with respect to logistics, that we know that, of course, that's the most difficult part, more on the extensions that we have, in such a country like in Argentina, going through all the land and the country. Logistics has Revita Bayer, where with this program, we're reforesting and maintaining native forest right here in Argentina to compensate the logistics is created. Of course, as Renato explained, to be efficient in our truck planning, and that the trucks are not empty. If we are moving with, if it goes with some packaging, comes back with products. And we understand that in Bayer, that if we're not able to do this, we're compensated with this Revita Bayer that is generating economical development, social and creating consciousness in these communes or areas in Argentina.
We can see the technology behind of the actions. Renato, the same question: how to minimize the impacts of the consumption of the resources and on the supply chain?
Acho que primeiro vale a gente
First
trabalha.
of all, I think that we're working in three great pillars that we talk a lot about in Camille. One of those is the quality of products and processes, and the constructions and strong brands. So to have direct contact with the consumer and be able to communicate directly this information, and to have quality in processes, this will allow us to diminishing this kind of impacts when you go within the industry in terms of losses, they're going to be affected to what I said in the last questions. Another pillar is operative efficiency, and not only measuring this, all directors with searching operative efficiency in sales, in the routes of the salesperson, deliveries, on the follow-up, in the logistic grid, where to produce and what kind of product I'm developing. Is there any closer facility, so I don't have to transport product great distances and result in this in economies in fleet, diesel consumption, and so on. Basically is that. And on the search of to be competitive, we're working 100% in that. And last but not least, the last pillar, it is sustainable growth with added value. So detailing a little bit about each process. When I talk about quality processes, that's the base of the business. I'm talking about constant scoping of certification, answering customer queries. We're certifying certain quality norms and regulations to support our brands that are quality references in the market where we are now. Communication, constant dedication of our brands, and connectivity and connection with our customers. We're in several segments, several regions of Brazil. And also the topic of speed and to be fast tracking the post-sale and analyzing problems in products that are being sent back. So we're trying to scope and incentivize a good process from start, so we don't have double work in our plan and with deliveries. When we talk about operative efficiencies, so we have less losses and great new challenges. We need to have great people. They're human beings, human talent. We're working on training our teams and leaders, so they're not just executors. They'll be agents of change, the ones that are proposed important changes for the management of our businesses. Through these, we're scoping and having a great process based on indicators. So everything that we do is we measure and we open new gates to create new efficiencies. We have a scope in cost. I want to underscore three areas: productivity, operative productivity, to do more with less. Diminishing consumption is also another pillar, and energy cost, where we have our thermal generation. We have a great opportunity in Brazil. I don't know if in Brazil we have free market. So what happens if I generate energy within my company and I'm not using that energy because of any reason? Probably I can put that energy in the grid and I can sell that energy that I have not used. So the energy that's on the grid, on the market, as it happened in Brazil now, like 2 or 3 months ago, that energy is quite expensive in Brazil than the cost of my generation of energy. So when I put that surplus, that excess on the grid, I have a source of income. So when the cost of energy production is less than my generation, it has no sense to sell. It's better to apply that energy within my industry. But searching for renewable energy brings new wins and operations, because we have great problem where the cost of energy that was 2x of my generation. So we have gained a lot of money generating power, electricity within, in-house. It's a great perspective, both in purchasing and selling energy. That's why we believe in a company that uses renewable energy to use the potentiality of these opportunities. And last but not least, the maintenance cost as well. If we're scoping on this means that less, my plants are not going to stop and have less losses because of stoppage of businesses. We talk about cost, distribution cost, and also on the application, we're trying to work and apply new technologies. I want to underscore on the logistic perspective. 2 years ago, we're digitalizing a lot of things in Camille. And one of the things that we've done is the digitalization of our logistic grid. It's what I said. We created on our plants, we analyzed our distribution centers. With this, we achieve to calibrate our routes, optimizing distances. So what product to put and where? What distribution center to be used? How do I improve quality in our supply chain? And we have used artificial intelligence that provides solutions for several scenarios. and that we analyze that. We also use flat, the freight cost, raw material, taxes, and so on. This is a matrix that allow us to understand and improve, have better margins, and have better routes. And last but not least, sustainable growth and added value. Camille, it's searching for improving technology and in our operative productions. And with this, in the past 4 years, we're able to build 3 new plants. One of those, we just finalized it in Sao Paulo, all of them with technology for diminishing costs, increasing productivity, operations, and so on. Nowadays, we are developing a project for purchasing a new thermoelectric plant. So we are transformed to sustainable in the short run. And we're scoping these in renewable energies with the objectives that I just told, both on sustainable perspective and financial that are together. We are united and we have opportunities and different destinations for waste. We have logistics, the reverse logistic that's kind of strong, reevaluation of our logistic grids and optimizing our freight cost. And this is to be able to operate in different countries. We're in Brazil with operations, but we have 9 in Uruguay, 1 in Chile, 1 in Peru, another 1 in Ecuador. We're working hard to change ideas and improve operations and share our learnings and improve our profits. That's a little bit what we're working right now and what it requires in scope, in costs, and in expenses as well.
Very interesting how Camille is moving to adapt to new markets and to new opportunities in the market. Jerome, now from the perspective of a technology company that is trying to transform organic resources via insects, what do you think? How we can minimize the impacts on resource consumption and on supply chain?
Well, one of the issues is about, you were saying that the food production must increase incredibly to feed 9 million people. But it's not only a question of getting more people. It's also the fact that these people, they also have increased requirements on the quality of the food. And especially, that animal origin food is going to increase even more because people are not eating anymore only rice. They also want to eat fish and animal and meat. And so there's one issue, it's not only about energy and water. It's also a question of the big question of proteins. That to feed animal and mainly those animals that are with whose production is really increasing, which fishes and poultry, you need to feed them with proteins, with high quality proteins. And there are mainly 2 main sources of protein at this time. Is mainly fish meal for high quality animal protein and soybean meal for the more biggest quantities. And these 2 sources, and mainly the fish meal, well, they are reaching a threshold in terms of production, and there might be some kind of shortage there, and the price are going up in long-term tendency. And these resources also poses questions of renewable, and the resources are not, well, they have end, they are finite. So what we are working on with insects, and that the FAO already in 2012 recommended that a part of the animal protein to feed people should be insects. What we are working on is to use insects, at least in the first step, to feed the animals, and especially in aquaculture. And there we have the opportunity that the insects are, they can be fed with all these scrapped food or agriculture waste or pre-consumer waste that are lost, and that's what we're working about. Insects, and especially insects larvae, when farmed in an industrial way with big farm, insect farms, they act as a protein refinery. They are able to get the protein, the traces of protein that are included in these waste streams, and to concentrate them in order to produce something that is usable for animal feed, just as like fish meal, for example. And that can be done in a way that is is quite sustainable in terms of resources consumption, because insect farming requires mostly, no water, at least no water whatsoever, except for washing the machines. And in terms of farming, it's a vertical farming, which means that it consumes much less space than some other farming techniques. For example, of course, it's just an example, but with a insect farm of several hectares, can produce almost as much as protein in terms of quantity than several thousands of hectares of soya bean culture. So you see that what we are working on is to use, to recycle agricultural waste to produce something that is a very valuable resource, which is protein for animal feed, which is in the coming decennial there can be a shortage or increase in prices, and to do that in a very sustainable way in terms of surface and water consumption. Now, of course, this is a brick in the improvement of the sustainability of the whole feed production. Insect will not replace entirely all the other protein sources, but at least as it will increase the efficiency of the protein cycle, and by there again not getting rid of proteins in the waste, whereas they could be valorized.
Very interesting, your point of view. And now, guys, let's move to the circular economy. At the beginning of the industrial era, the economic and productivity development was linking a linear economic model: extraction, manufacture, use, and disposal. In this model, the available resources were not taken into account. Simply at the end of the useful life of the product, this was discarded. However, the depletion of natural resources and fossil fuels that has been occurring in recent years, associated with a growing and more demanding population, make it necessary to change the economic model to use resources more efficiently and sustainably available throughout the production chain. The circular economy tries to implement the new model based on the principle of the limiting and closing life cycle of the products, service, water, and energy. Jerome, now we start with you guys. What can the agri-food industry do, or what is being done to generate a circular economy?
As I was just telling you, the recycling or the valorization of protein in waste by insects, which we call bioconversion by insects, is a way to start such a circular economy. Of course, to achieve that, there are some there are some measures that have to be taken, of course, because to be able to recycle a part of the production needs to to take in account the technical constraints that are linked with the recycling, which means you have to sort your different waste or different waste streams in order that you do not mix what can be recycled and what cannot be recycled. There are all kinds of organizational measures to be taken so that you can achieve that kind of thing. That's one of the most important things to think about. Is to how would I say that, to when you design the whole production process, you have to think about recycling and circular economy from the design of the whole process, because you have to take in account the technical constraints of recycling. But basically, that's what we are working on, and there are plenty of opportunities to improve this and to put inform a circular economy on agriculture. Yes.
That's right. That's right. You know, Yamina, ¿qué puede hacer la industria agroalimentaria?
What could the agro-food industry, what is doing Bayer to create a circular economy? You've given us some idea, but I don't know if we can, face it differently. Yes, completely agree. I have several examples, Ricardo. One, as Jerome said, of creating a project or buying a product from this criteria of circular economy. That means is, what could I buy that it's done with materials that are recycled? What could I do on my process, that waste becomes reused? As I told you before, from cradle of one product to new cradle of another product. Is part of the circular economy, this objective to be zero landfill. Nothing is waste for us. For us, it's a new material. Several of these criteria are then prepared, analyzed by the Argentine legislation. For instance, wastes, that is the phytosanitary packaging bottle. It has a minimum budget law, so they are not in landfills, contaminated, or creating damages to people. This is a minimum budget law where Bayer participates actively, being part of the organization that's called Campo Limpio, like a free camp. We have transitory warehouses where you as a company or as a grower, you can take your phytosanitary packaging and the traceability of documentation, those packaging or bottles with a treatment, cleaning, and so on. If they're able to be recovered, they're a part of new raw materials like, I don't know, posts, poles, different cones for, traffic signaling and so on. And it goes to a special treatment as the law requires. This helps a lot, so we can recover millions and millions of phytosanitary bottles that today are part of the circular economy criteria. And Bayer is one of these companies that are actively participating to generate new centers, warehouses, transitory warehouses, and continues to work. We're assessing this. Jerome also talked about, and Renato told also about subproducts, byproducts that are not waste, are products that comes after several processes. We're on the field, we have several of those, like for instance, we use, seeds, there's a more, granza, that it's a dust. All of these, so products or byproducts in agriculture we sell for animal food, and also as organic, for fertilizers and so on. This is part of a circular economy that we do with these subproducts or byproducts. Also, we do packaging like bags where the seed comes. Today, that seed is, we think is obsolete. We separate it. The one that has contact with the seed goes to a specific treatment, as the law says, and everything that is recycled is being taken to the same cooperative where we took all the waste that are recycled and they create new materials. Like for instance, I don't know, school items for great customers or big customer, major customers. We're not going to sell bulk, packaging in crop protection and so on. So it goes something empty and comes back something filled. We're going to alleviate in packaging that, you know, you as people, when you're going to buy, so always you bring like, well, you don't know what to do with that bag or things on. At our facilities, we have a lot of work of teaching and how to, we can create, you know, eco bottles, you know, plastic caps are sent for hospitals so they can be reused. We also have buildings that are certified by under LEED assessment in sustainable, you know, energy, and in the with the LEED Council, where we have rainwater collection, 100% renewable energy. Even, you know, the areas are done. Some areas are done with, you know, photovoltaic energy. And something that it's, last not but least, that's something that's today we see, and that the pandemic affected, and it's part of that human role, is the loss of biodiversity is one of the causes of human beings. There's a global network that's called Wildlife, where it, you know, it foster, you know, landscape in native room trees and forests and so on. We have several projects certified WWHZ, where we, you know, these corridors are part of our commitment with nature. So more or less, that's what we're doing. The important thing is that we as people, we also are not left just to the private companies, and we as consumers, what do we do with my waste? You know, so circular economy will be a global mindset, because as a company has a commitment, we as citizens, we continue sending garbages, you know, garbage to the landfill is not an objective that is complete.
At the end, the circular economy is possible, that you send us some examples that is do it. After overcoming the health crisis with our supply problems, the sector focused on the challenge of sustainability and digitalization that will be key in this future. Now, Renato, we move to you. What are the three great challenges that you envision?
Boa pergunta. Assim, no nosso ponto de
Great
ver,
question, yeah. Okay, in our perspective, I think we have three challenges ahead. And we have tested all of this during the pandemic, when we had to digitalize in a fast pace. We have business models, traditional business model, we all in our office. We are now in home office. Most of those are operations through our home connections. We can manage that and maintaining operations running and providing our products, but from home. So the first thing that we saw and we create a challenge is always having great people that are trained and that are ready, accept the change. We need to stimulate change in our companies. We need to have people that are high performance, people that are in an environment that deliver differentiated results, but that are welcome within our organization. One of our values is the closeness of our people, where we try to work in a big company as a family. We feel in a family. So this is one of the values of our company, is based on this that have been built to maintain our people, our human beings close, nonetheless about distances, even working from home, but maintaining these people connected in such a dynamic management. We need to have qualified human talent that have constant training constant training. Yeah, they'll be able to adapt, you know, to changes or big shocks as we lived last year. Another perspective that supports all of this, it doesn't mean to have people, yes, of course, but if they're not robust process to support this management, we won't be able to have sustainability in the long run. We're working quite hard in the development of robust projects to support routines in our operations, in sales, financial operations, logistics, and so on. What will be the standardization, where I talk about 15 facilities, 700 international facilities? How do we operate to create more sustainable result in the long run? So processes are also important for this, based on auto management, and we need to create aggressive goals. So we always pulling our team ahead. You say that our good team likes to work with strong objectives. Weak objective does not stimulate development. We need ambitious goals that you can communicate this in such a clear perspective for the team, and the team understand what will be this objective. It's a new challenge, and this, self development projects to improve our quality operations, to improve our development, to have human beings processes. We need to have new technologies that support all of this. We have a quite a right example where we are able to have a process that is implementation of all transformation of our trucks in Brazil, and through these have the tracking of our deliveries. That today, into the 21st century, calling our truck driver to know if the product has been delivered? No. If the customer received the customer, it has no sense whatsoever. With the technologies that we have available now in the market, what we're trying to search in Camille is creating a new grid logistics using artificial intelligence to create new models. We need to have group robust processes, but also updating our technology, because there are processes that are quite simple to do as they were 10 years ago. And to put this technology inside, you lead new ideas so people could develop new projects. I think our challenge is people, processes, and technology. That's my vision. And we're working in this to be able to achieve this new objective. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Renato. Unfortunately, we are reaching to the end of this panel. I would like to take some moment to say thank you to all the questions that we are receiving for our audience. Unfortunately, due to the time, we cannot possible to answer that, but Veolia sent the question to you guys, and we try to respond all the questions. So during this hour, we have had different approaches and point of view regarding the challenge faced by the agro-industrial sector in the world. What is a fact is that without a doubt, the sector will continue to develop new and more creative solutions to the challenge of the future. Before we say goodbye, let me ask you to you guys. First of all, we started with Yemina. ¿Qué te llevas de esta plática? ¿Qué mensaje te gustaría dejar?
What are you taking home? What message you want to be left our participants with? Okay, yes. As I touched when we're talking about circular economy, I believe, climate change, our commitment with the sustainable development, we as people, is that we are part of the problem. We all are part of this problem, and we need to be part of the solution together as well. We have talked about that we need to leave a cleaner, a better earth for newer generations, but I create a challenge to that statement. And let me ask you, is it better to have more responsible consumers and responsible in our development for Earth in the future? So it doesn't matter if it's small, separating, materials, waste to see what I do with it. I know, my jam, my packaging, I'm going to create a new product. I don't know. That small change, small actions for many people create greater change, major changes. That's why Bayer led, talking about, you say about digitalization, and Renato mentioned, we create an idea of an app online, so each person will measure, their carbon footprint. Not only says how it's composed, including your kind of food diet and so on, and how you divide, waste, how you travel, what's your consumption, electricity and gasoline. It gives you tips and saving energy for transportation. I don't know, for creating your own orchard, garden, carpooling. Is an app that we are very proud of having it, and we're going to give it to our employees, and they share it for this. So we are a part of this new movement and changing and being sustainable. That's what we want to do. Thank you very much. We thank you participation here. Jerome.
Thank you very much. What's the final message would you like to give or leave to our participants?
Well, the message is that I am absolutely convinced that technical solutions exist and can be developed to considerably lower the footprint of the whole industry, agriculture industry. But my message would be that really we are, as technicians, we will try to find some technical solutions, but there are also, as I was telling before, some measures that must be taken when designing the whole cycle to make these technical solutions possible and profitable and cost effective. I will just take an example. When you have in some industry, you generate byproducts or waste, and this is you cannot do without doing that. But if you separate the waste, if you do not mix the waste that can be recycled with packaging or with toxic material, then it means that you can recycle, and you can recycle easily without having to pre-treat, so you can be cost effective, and so you can go with the solution. So the main message is that you have to think about recycling and about footprint on the whole design, and then some technical solutions can be they can always be found and be cost effective. That's my main message.
Thank you very much, Aaron. We appreciate that you be here. And Renato, what is the final message would you like to give or leave to our participants? This is mute, Renato, please.
Desculpa, me desculpe. Primeiro eu queria agradecer.
Sorry, I would like to thank our colleagues for the learnings that we've been able to share throughout this video and this conference. I think one of the learnings that I'm leaving here and that we had is today, we talk a lot about, ESG. I'm lead of the environmental committee, and we've been seeing that every time more, we are, provoking our team so they find solutions that bring us sustainability in time together with profitability. We are able to achieve and create new ideas. So provoking our teams is like, for instance, we have an umbrella or ESG umbrella for several topics where I scope like environmental topic, but it works for everything. How do we provoke our teams so they bring new ideas that we never thought about? Because I always say that when you work in a plant, in industry facility, the ones that knows best is the one that operates the machine. That's what creates waste, is the person that works with soap or byproducts, is the one that leads loss, is the one that guarantees cleanliness so we can reuse. So if that person on the field understands their role, we achieve bringing more ideas to be able, to the senior management, so we have a decision making and finding new opportunities. I believe the final message, I do agree with all of my fellow members of this panel. Please incentivize your teams so they create sustainable ideas. Incentivize so they create ideas. It's not simple ideas from the senior management, but from everyone that participates. With that, I'm sure we're going to change. We will have a better world, more sustainable, if we all think how to change. Provoking our teams is fundamental. They use it for something that we have ESG, teamwork, and so on. So together we can have new ideas and we are more sustainable in time. Thank you very much for inviting me and the opportunity for sharing in this panel.
And on behalf of Veolia, we thank our guests for their participation in this forum. Their contributions are very valuable in knowing the news on the food and beverage sector. Don't forget to go to the page www.veolia.com/LatamMeet if you have any question. Our expert will be happy to answer. Thank you so much, guys. I'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.